Having looked at the IV characteristics and the significant points on the IV characteristics, it is probably now a good time to look at the data sheets. Studying the data sheet and trying to map the data sheet parameters to the IV characteristic significant points will give great insight into the character of the IV characteristics and also to select the PV panels. We shall have a look at the data sheet and try to consolidate our understanding of the IV characteristic of the PV panel. This page shows the data sheet of photovoltaic modules. This is a polycrystalline 210 watts to 240 watt module. You see many columns here. Each column represents a particular wattage panel, and these are the parameters of interest to us, and then let us see how they map to the IV characteristics. We will look at one typical panel of a particular wattage, which is 240 watt peak, and try to study each of the parameter and see how they map to the IV characteristics that we have studied. For that, let us place the IV characteristics somewhere here so that we will be able to understand it better along with the data sheet. We now have here the IV characteristic of the PV panel. Consider these parameters and let us take this column, means we are taking a 240 watt PV panel. Now let me consider ISC. This is 8.99 amps, and let us mark it here 8.99 amps. VOC as given in the data sheet is 36.72, so we can write that down here, 36.7 volts. Then we also have further parameters. IMP and VMP. IMP is the current at peak power point. VMP is the voltage at peak power point. They correspond to this. This is VMP, which we have used the term VM, and this is IMP. So if you look at these two and map it onto the PV panel, this is equal to 7.96 amps, and this is 30.18 volts. Now this is a 240 watt panel. What it basically means is that we have 240 watts as the peak power that the panel is capable of supplying, and that is this point as indicated here. You could also get it by multiplying 7.96 into 30.18 volts. You will notice that the term P is used here. P represents peak. So generally in photovoltaic module datasheet terminology, what is used is watt peak, implying that it is the peak power point. So normally we would write this as P. Now one question arises. We have 240 watts peak, and this is the currents and the voltages as we see on the IV curve. At what incident solar power do all these values apply? So normally there is a standard incident solar power, and that is 1 kilowatt per meter square, and at a temperature 25 degree centigrade. Now this is standard insolation, we call it a standard insolation, and 25 degree centigrade as the standard temperature. So if it is not specified, all these values are given for this standard incident solar power per meter square and at a temperature of 25 degree centigrade ambient temperature.